Hey everybody, wanted to let you know that my new book, Hometown Titan, Build a Local Business That Dominates Your Market, is now available on Amazon and has already hit the bestseller lists. We're going to be coming out with Audible soon and hoping to get it into some bookstores, but it would mean the world to me if you went out and got your copy here today, because in this book, I tell never before told stories on my 12 plus year journey in the moving industry. So go get your copy today, Hometown Titan, Build a Local Business That Dominates Your Market, and tighten up.
You know, it's funny. A lot of people think it's about the marketing, and it's not about the marketing. And this is where you and I are in the same business, right? Moving and real estate is the same business. It's all about customer satisfaction. I'm sure there's been, but I think in my headspace right now, while we're talking, I never think of anything as a failure. It's a learning opportunity. It's a growing opportunity.
I absolutely love that quote. I just wrote that down. I want to put it on a sign and frame it somewhere in my office. At Two College Brothers Moving and Storage, we're proud to be Team Smart Moving. This CRM has been a game changer, helping us become more profitable than we've ever been. I love all the features, sales automation, drag and drop scheduling, and especially the reporting. I can see our top referral partners, lost leads, and profit per job. Everything. It's all there. Before we had a CRM, everything was in spreadsheets and a shared calendar. I was running myself ragged and barely breaking 10% profit. It's not like that anymore. In 4 years with Smart Moving, we've 4x our revenue, and because the business is running smoothly, I get to spend time on other things, like talking with you wonderful folks on this podcast. Whether it's your first CRM or you're ready for an upgrade, Smart Moving is the software I recommend. It's truly the smartest move you'll ever make. Check them out and use my link at smartmoving.com/Wade. That's smartmoving.com/Wade to get 1 month free. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. I'm your host, Wade Sweikel, and today I have a treat for you. One of our most recent speakers at the Hometown Titan retreat that we did here locally in Tampa Bay a few weeks ago. We've got agent Jennifer Thayer with Keller Williams St. Realty, and she was one of our speakers. She did a fantastic presentation on the stage, keynote, as well as an excellent Q&A panel that we did towards the end of the day. And she is the #1 agent at Keller Williams St. Pete, located right there in downtown beautiful St. Pete. She's a top 50 agent out of all agents in the state of Florida, top 1% in Pinellas County, Florida, and since 2019, she's sold over $400 million in real estate. Ladies and gentlemen, this is probably the biggest, highest producing agent that I've interviewed on the podcast. And I know we get a lot of great feedback hearing the perspective from agents and people that we do business with on the other side that aren't just moving company owners or moving industry specific people, but technically you kind of are in the moving industry, Jennifer. You're on the buying and selling side, especially when it comes to luxury high-rise condos, multi-million-dollar penthouses in the downtown area. And thank you for coming on and taking some time on the podcast today. But tell me a little bit about your story. How did you get into real estate? I mean, you haven't been in it for all too long, since 2019. And I know you had a whole career or multiple careers before that. And you got into it and you found your calling and hit the ground running and have been crushing it ever since. So I'm really curious to hear what that journey looked like. And we'll talk about some other strategies that we can both employ to help our companies grow.
Awesome. Thanks for having me here, Wade. I'm actually excited to be talking with your audience. And I really appreciate being at the Mahaffey. That was a wonderful event. So I did get licensed in 2005. So I start numbers as of 2019 when we talk, mainly because my real career kicked off in 2019. So how did I start? Well, I'm a Florida native, right? I absolutely love Florida. I'm a big advocate for Florida. I think there's so many wonderful things here, but I grew up in Miami. So my husband was my high school boyfriend, and he ended up kind of moving around. I moved around, so we've got a story. But we both came back together and chose Tampa Bay to live in, right? So this was going to be our location that we chose. But then he got a job in Maine. So while we were here in the Tampa Bay area, I ended up taking the exam for real estate, right? So I took the class, passed that class, but never took the state exam. So when he got relocated for work to go to Portland, Maine, that's when I realized that I wanted to be back in Florida so badly. So I actually got my license while living in Maine. So from there, I have some great contacts here in St. Petersburg and talked to a company that got me involved in selling a condominium back in 2005, which was Signature Place. So I started at Signature Place. The great thing about doing that is I got to learn every nuance, every in and out of every building in the downtown. The downturn of the market, I ended up leaving for a period, went to outside sales, and then came back in 2015, where I worked at One St. Petersburg. So another condominium building, which again continued the expansion of my my brand, of my knowledge here of the downtown area. And then I did things at both buildings, which was a lot of fun, which was a trolley tour. So I have a background in interior design and architecture. I've always loved tours. I've loved talking about neighborhoods and properties because they're so unique and special. So I ended up doing a trolley tour, which, I had alcohol on. I made it a lot of fun. And I talked about not only the history of St. Petersburg, and that's actually was driven more by the trolley driver. He did his normal spiel, and he let me give him a little nudge. And then I would jump in and talk about the future of St. Pete, what's happening now, what's happening in the future, and the events that take place. So not only did it help me to kind of work to grow sales at One St. Petersburg and at Signature Place, it did more branding, but it branded me personally, and people thought of me as the go-to person. I can answer questions about the downtown area. So in 2009, end of 2018, actually, I left being an on-site agent, became a general market agent, and that's where numbers really count, right? Because when you're on site, although I was involved in 67% of all sales done at One St. Petersburg, it catapulted me in the general market to really become a leader in the downtown area because nobody had done that before.
Awesome. And you've been basically dubbed the queen of downtown St. Pete ever since then. And I know you've gotten some really prestigious listings with top end, high end luxury clients. And I think a lot of the movers that listen to this podcast are always trying to think, how do we get the more affluent clientele? How do we get the bigger jobs? The people that aren't as price sensitive over, a couple bucks an hour in price difference, that are more focused on getting a quality experience. And I feel like real estate's very much the same way. Like you guys, we think moving's competitive. It's a relatively low barrier to entry, but there's maybe a few dozen big players in Tampa Bay in the moving industry. Whereas in real estate, you've got thousands of licensed agents, and you're going against everybody from, premium top 1% agents that cover a, broad range of luxury properties. There's a lot of luxury properties in Tampa Bay, a lot of waterfront. And then you're going against people that are essentially part-timers that might sell a couple houses a year, that just happen to be like a friend or a cousin of somebody that might be listing or buying or selling a house. How do you stand out and really resonate more with that higher end affluent customer clientele? This show is powered by HeyLou's virtual assistant team. They've revolutionized how we run our business and can handle anything from inbox management to social media, research, and yes, even production of this podcast. Want to reclaim more than 20 hours a week in your business so that you can focus on the things that really move the needle? Use our link in the description to get started with your own dedicated VA with HeyLou. And thanks to HeyLou for powering the Grow Your Moving Company podcast.
Right. It's funny. A lot of people think it's about the marketing, and it's not about the marketing. And this is where you and I are in the same business, right? Moving and real estate is the same business. It's all about customer satisfaction, right? So if you're not giving white glove treatment, you're losing, right? Because one person is the key to the next person, or the key to multiple sales. And it's a lot slower when you're only making one person happy. So from a moving perspective, you're like, what does it matter? Well, it matters because it brands you, right? Because it continues to grow your business by getting good reviews. So it's all about the reviews, but it's not just getting a review at the end. It's about the entire process, right? So because I do a lot in the downtown, it's very hard for a mover to break into the downtown. And the reason is because some businesses have stepped up as white glove service. So I'm white glove service. I don't just help someone find a house and walk away. I'm there through the entire process. I want to learn everything I need to know about them. So for a mover, it'd be the same thing. You want to learn what's the process of a building, right? What are their expectations? What are the elevators like? What's their protocols? Do I lock down the elevator? How long's the trip from where the truck has to be parked to the actual condominium? And I know I'm focusing just on condos. I definitely do a lot in the general market as well with single family homes, but one way to look at it from a condominium standpoint is everyone's expecting white glove service. And it's funny, we should be having this talk today. I had a very bad experience with a mover yesterday, and it comes from the top down, right? So we were expecting that. I'll give you an example. It would have been 3 days ago. Someone was supposed to come. A company had their packers coming first. Well, the packers didn't get it done that day. The movers didn't know about it. So the next day, which was 2 days ago, the movers show up and they are now supposed to move, but they find out that the packing wasn't done. And this is a luxury client. And I'm talking it's a big client, multi-million dollars, but even things like crystal lamps weren't packed yet. So now the movers who are in no position to move are now having to reposition themselves, and there was damage done. Right? Now we're looking at damage, but not only did 2 days ago they not move it, the buyer was supposed to come in yesterday to close. This is supposed to be a great experience. So I'm there, right? So now as a realtor, I'm putting my hat on to help with the moves, right? One of the guys threatened to quit, and they were supposed to have 4 guys yesterday. It was the second day. They hadn't anticipated it. They couldn't get other guys. So not only are we behind a day, but the people that are there are very unhappy, these workers. So then by the end of the day, they finally got 2 more people to show up. It finally got completed. But the problem is, not only are they not going to be recommended again, but the seller had to pay $3,000 towards the dissatisfaction of the buyer. There was damage done in the hallway, so I'm sure somebody's going to have to cover that. And the team was upset. I've had a long sort of career in sales, and there are things that you really can do or focus on. I held a sales meeting once for a company, and there are, the Seattle fish market is always a great little video to play for your teams. So it's not just about the end goal of getting this one moved. It's about the perception of your entire business model. So the Seattle fish market is a great example that I use, and it's an old one, to talk about how do you make working in a fish market fun, right? There's nothing fun about it, right? I'm guessing in your
work.
Is moving fun, right? Can you create moving fun? Well, the Seattle fish market, what they did was they decided they were going to toss around fish. You leave your problems at the door. You come in with a good disposition. And there's great books on that. Like there's even the energy bus, things that are simple that people can read to say, hey, look.
I think I have that on my shelf right there back behind me.
Yeah, it's a fun, simple read. Many, many years ago in my career, one of my bosses gave it to me and she said, hey, this is how our team works. And I've always loved it. So that talks about, bringing the energy, kind of leaving your problems outside and really focusing on kind of what's important collectively as a team. So it's from management down. So I over since 2019, I've built a team. I now have 5 women working with me. They're all exceptional. We talk about the same things. Even our evening chats, we've got a team thread, that's where we have a little bit more fun, because of the daytime we really focus on just making sure we're getting the job done. We're all keeping on top of things. And then, of course, we really enjoy working with each other. So it's kind of the secret.
I want to take a second and tell you all about Tighten Up Training. As a co-founder, we've spent months and months and months and a lot of money pooling together resources from some of the best moving companies in the world. And we're excited to bring this to an online platform available to any mover to use at an affordable price. Tighten Up Training has over 200 videos including mover training, your highest turnover position, so that you can reduce claims, streamline operations, give your team the tools to perform at the highest level of service that generate repeat and referral business and allow you to charge higher prices, as well as sales training, marketing training, business development, leadership. We're adding more content as we speak. We've got legal training in there. We've even got door-to-door training for the moving industry, thanks to Lenny Gray at the Moving Titan Retreat. We've seen a massive explosion of moving companies jumping on to Tighten Up training since the last retreat, and people are loving it. And when you sign up and mention this podcast, we're going to give you a free 6-week onboarding course in order to learn how to hold your team accountable and get the entire team on the platform so that you can have the best off-season and summer season that you've ever had. Ideally, the best 2025 that you've ever had. So go to tightenuptraining.com, schedule your free demo today, and look forward to tightening up.
I love that. And I need to watch, I've heard a lot about this Seattle fish market. I need to watch the video that you're referencing. Is that like a YouTube video or is it on like a documentary platform? Okay, cool. I'm going to look that up.
It's a video, and I think, oh gosh, there's a book I'm going to reference as well, and I forget how many degrees to boiling, but it's like 300 and something Fahrenheit, right? Whatever the boiling point is, and it's the difference between maybe? It's 212. That's it, 212. Sorry.
High school physics paying off.
Yeah, awesome. So it's the difference between 211 and 212, right? What's the difference in that 1 degree? And this is another great, thoughtful book that says the difference in 1 degree, because everything before that is just what everyone's doing. And that 1 degree is that extra. How do you become extraordinary? Right? It's just some one little thing. So if you're thinking of white glove service, do something a little bit different than everybody else is doing. So for our system, we walk them through front to back. And I told you before, since meeting you, you're on my vendor list. I keep a vendor list of everybody that I trust, the top people that I think will get the job done well. And I only keep 3, a maximum of 4. That I can trust, because that's who I can keep up with. I keep up with the reviews. I make sure they're doing the right thing. Because if I'm going to recommend somebody, I want to make sure that, that because my name is associated with it, that it's a good recommendation.
Yeah. And that's something that we come across quite often, especially with professional real estate agents or just professionals in any business that might be a potential referral partner of us is, it's really hard to get on their list, and it's really easy to get taken off. It only takes one bad experience. I think every business should work that way. In my book behind me, the Hometown Titan book, I talk about your team of Titans and making sure that you align with people that share your values and your quality of service and all of the things that make you great, because you'll attract people when you become great, when you work on yourself and you actually do these things and live these practices and live that way. People that also do those things recognize that, and real recognizes real most of the time. And you start to draw in those types of people, and you're only as good as your best vendor. And we've had, I can think back of an accountant, fractional CFO that we had that was not in alignment with our values and didn't understand our business a few years ago. And it caused a myriad of problems. Like, they were trying to make cuts to things that were crucial to our success and then focus on, crunching numbers over on this side that were important at the end of the day. But it was almost like a doctor treating a symptom versus a doctor getting to the root cause of what's causing the symptoms. And that, that's from a financial standpoint, and it caused some problems that we had to ultimately correct. And that person only lasted about 6 months, but now I'm like extremely picky about who touches our books and our numbers and makes decisions on, all the different stuff that go into finance, because they have to fully understand the business, but they also have to understand the finance piece of it. And sometimes that's really hard to find an expert in one area that also can be versatile enough to understand the other areas and really treat the root cause rather than just treating the symptoms. Because a lot of times when you just treat the symptoms, it compounds and you start having problems and other symptoms somewhere else because the root cause is still there.
Yeah, I totally agree. In one of my jobs in the past, I was a recruiter, and we would educate companies to hire slowly, fire swiftly, right? Mm-hmm. The second you get a cancer, you've got to deal with it, right? You either repair the problem or you let go of the problem, right? So you want to make sure that you're very thoughtful. That's why I think I have the best team out there, is because they are I was very thoughtful in bringing them on. They have all the right skills. We share the same values, and we understand what our mission is, right? And it really has a lot to do with client satisfaction. It's all surrounding that. So we go the extra mile. We even have done things, even with leasing. It's not something that we typically do, but if we have a client that has a need and it's off season, they want to sell, sometimes we'll work with them to lease a property. And so we'll go above and beyond to make sure that we're doing best for our clients and educating them on the market.
Yeah. And that brings up a really good point that I want to ask you about. A lot of movers only hire guys willing to do the work. And they're just like, I'll take anybody who's willing to go out on the trucks and sweat all day in the sun and do this physical work. And a lot of them will hire career movers that have been doing it for 30 years, but they're these old, salty, gruff guys that aren't, well polished. And it's like, you're sending those guys into these luxury buildings or homes and expecting them to deliver the level of white glove service that you advertise and that you're ultimately trying to get those affluent clients. And it's not a good way to do it. I mean, I always say hire for attitude, train for aptitude, because somebody with a great attitude is going to pick up the training very quickly. They're going to want to learn how to do it. They don't necessarily have to have the experience when they first come in. But that's where the importance of having those great training programs and just really working with people to make sure that they can get up to speed on what they need to know, because the attitude piece isn't really teachable. That's either you have it or you don't in most situations. Maybe somebody came from a rough background and nobody ever taught them how to have a great attitude, and you teach them, but usually you teach them once or twice, and if they have it, they'll embrace it, and then they'll become a changed person. But typically, you can recognize if they're going to be able to be a good fit after just a few days. People do their best work in their first few days when they're excited about the opportunity. And as the business owner, it's important to have some structure and that guidance and mentorship and the programs and processes for them to fully recognize their potential. But I'm curious, you have a team of 5 amazing people. How did you find those people, and what's like the onboarding phase when they first come to work with your company? Because finding great people, it sounds easy, hire for attitude, but sometimes it's hard to find people that have that great attitude and to attract those people. Yeah. What's your secret to that?
Well, so this is where we're different, right? I had no intentions of growing my team. So I started off, I just really needed someone working as my COO, right? The backbone of the company. And so early on in my career, I found that person. She was managing 18 agents for a company, and I was one of the 18. So she was she was working with the top 18. And because she was part of this system and she knew everything front to back, and she was a native of Florida, and she could be as tough as you wanted, or as eloquent as, her letters had this beautiful elegance to it, or she can come down hard, bring the hammer. She knew exactly when to do it, and she knew the business. She knows people. Being a Florida native, being a St. Pete native, actually, she knows the people here, which is even bigger. So her attitude, her drive, so that's where it all started. So I basically hired her and said, you name what you want, I want you. So we worked out a wonderful deal. She's got a great package. So I'm hoping that means she'll never leave me. So then from there, it was a matter of finding people who could help support me, because before it was just, I wanted to do the business. I had enough. I was just going to work alone as a solo. Then I brought somebody on who could help support just the clients as needed. Well, it turns out that she was way more than a support person, right? So her background is, she's from New York. She's a real estate attorney. Although she's young, she's sharp. She's a real go-getter, real hungry. And I realized she could talk not just to the younger generation, but because of her background and her knowledge, she really could work with clients that had a luxury background as well, right? There's a lot of similarities, where they've traveled to before, what they know, and she loves to talk hotels. So on top of knowing the real estate industry from an attorney point of view, she she kind of knows the people as well. So she quickly grew with me and has done great things. I then found my third person. So that was JJ was my COO. Morgan Sherman is the first person I brought up on. And then Kelly Welch, I brought Kelly on. Well, Kelly's incredible because I had done deals with her. She was working with another agent and she was just going in and she would be assigned. So she was more of kind of the catch-all. She would do both the buy side and the sell side, but always in the luxury market. Waterfronts is her specialty. So as I did a lot more of the waterfront homes, Kelly was able to jump in, and I brought her on because her specialty and her demeanor and her presence, she's very elegant. She has this calmness about her, so she can handle any type of situation, and she has an interior design background too, so really helps. So I thought I was going to end there, but then I met somebody else. So wasn't looking to grow, but she started off as my client. Absolutely brilliant, government background. Father was a general contractor. She knows construction. Her sister, I went to college with at University of Florida. We studied interior design together.
Go Gators.
Yeah, go Gators. So here she is, very powerful with negotiating, especially being in government. So she decided she wanted to get her real estate license, and I couldn't think of a better person to bring on the team, right? And she really kind of rounds off everybody. And then most recently, there is a woman named Margaret Huerta, and she's wonderful. Comes from New York, used to work at YSL and other luxury brands. So she brings a different background of marketing and stuff. So I just gave you the whole profile of my team, but it was very organic. Right. I wasn't looking. So that's where it's going to be different. I know that you all have to look for somebody, but it's how do you keep them? Because I'm sure in your past, every mover will find guys that'll work for a period of time. And I think it starts from the top down, right? You have to make them happy. You have to make them want to be there. I love the carrot idea, right? Bonuses are important. Get them a shirt if they need to look professional, right? Everybody wears the nice clean shirt and it has to be cleaned. They walk in and they have like little things that they say, partner guys to work together who actually like each other, right? Create that team environment. But it's not just about you bring them in, you hope that they have a good attitude and you let them go. It's really from the top down. So I think it's the most important.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've become the flame and not the moth. Like at first you attracted this COO who kind of got the momentum going. And, for the next couple of people, it was like, oh, okay, we got a great team here. And there's already some validation and some proof that this is a good team because this person's great and this person's great. So then you get another one and then somebody recognizes that. And then they're like, oh, wow, this is a great team. I want to come work for this. And you can get very selective and you're basically organically drawing that leadership team and circle to your organization. And, you say you don't want to grow anymore, but I feel like, that could change if the perfect person or the right person comes along and, you resonate really well with her on the team. And I always like to say that happy team members make happy clients and happy clients make happy owners. Yeah. So I think the same kind of applies there. And when you can build that strong leadership team, I mean, I know you don't have to hire movers necessarily and build a big team to grow your business, but you got, as a moving company owner, you have to be able to organically, I think, attract that leadership team and have one or two key people with you to help build that momentum, because those people are then going to attract people below them that might need to be that frontline force. And then once you have those people, you start to build layers of greatness, and each person is all kind of vibrating on that same frequency and attracting more great people that like to stick around. And it just makes that culture really powerful. And people.
Well, how are you guys doing it then in the moving world? How are you able to attract? Because it's a different model. We're all client service. We're all trying to do that. But what does it look like in your world?
Yeah, well, I can mainly speak for myself, but I think, putting out myself as, showcasing that flame, I think helps to draw in people, because if we have an applicant or if we have somebody in the moving space or looking for a career that stumbles across something like this podcast or one of our events, or maybe they heard about one of our events. This was our first hometown Titan retreat, but we usually do a moving Titan retreat for the moving industry. That's what we've done 7 or 8 other times up to this most recent spring event that was more locally based. I've met both of my franchise partners started listening. They found the podcast. They were already in the moving or home services business. And I talk about our retreats on the podcast. They came to a retreat. We got to meet, connect, hit it off. We realized that we had a lot of the same values. And then ultimately that led to a franchise partnership. As far as like the employee side, I've gotten kind of lucky. I think sometimes movers do get lucky when they build a great team. They might put out a job ad for something and for a general manager or a high level leadership position, and they will just sift through the applicants. And then ultimately it's a little bit of a risk. Sometimes you're not sure if this person is going to be better than your last person. You're not sure how well they're going to do. But I like to have a barrier to application. You've heard like barrier to entry, but I always like to have kind of a weed out process especially when I'm interviewing for a leadership team, because I know I can only grow the frontline team if I've got a strong leadership team. Right. And ultimately I want to find people that will grow that frontline team on as the part of the leadership team. So it's kind of like, you attract like a small circle of like key people, and then those people are responsible for attracting their own small circles in each department. And one thing that I've found to be really successful when hiring for a key position is to make them submit like a 3-minute video on why they think they would be a good fit. And I remember when I was hiring my executive assistant, I think I had 2 or 3 people. I had hundreds of applications on Indeed, and in the instructions in bold font, it said, you must submit a 3-minute video to this email address to be considered. And hundreds of people applied. Only 2 or 3 people actually submitted the video. And that was like, okay, like these people actually read the instructions. And that's a really important part about hiring an assistant, is that they need to be able to read and follow instructions. And so it made the decision very easy after that. And so that's a big piece of it. But I think, employees or team members, they're going to research the company and they're going to interview the person that they're going to work for. So by doing things that establish yourself as an authority or a thought leader in your space, I feel is a great way to build that trust and validation, because it's a very trusting relationship on both sides. Like This person's looking for somebody to support their livelihood and their families and their living and their day-to-day life. You spend 8 hours, a third of your day working, a third of your life working, really. And some businesses, probably like yours, it's probably more than a third most of the time when you're constantly on the clock responding to inquiries and everything else. So, that's a big commitment that somebody has to make, and they need to feel comfortable with the person that they're going to work for. And if you haven't done the work on yourself and you haven't put yourself out there and showcased, these are my values, this is what I'm all about, this is, prove your expertise, whether it's, speaking on stage or hosting. You don't have to host a big event or do a podcast necessarily, but doing something that kind of separates you from every other moving company that's out there or every other realtor that's out there. And, that'll make those good people feel good about working for you, because nothing frustrates an A player more than having to work with B and C players. And so you need to be an A+ player as the owner if you're trying to attract A players, or else they're just not going to stick around. And then those A players will hopefully attract other A players as you build your organization. That's at least my philosophy and how I see it.
No, and I totally agree with that. And I've had, so I'll admit it here. This is my 34th job since graduating college. I mean, that's not even counting college jobs but I've had so I was just thinking about this company I used to work for. So I lived in California and kind of all over. And in California, I worked for a company called eNutrition. And they did the best, what I call low hanging fruit. And I was, you made me think of like my experience with this last mover, over the last couple of days. Both guys, there were only 2 guys working, but they both left to go get lunch. Not that I would ever deny anyone food, right? But I felt like they weren't giving it their all. Then they leave. They're on their hour break. There's so much going on. It's so far behind. And e-nutrition, the low-hanging fruit, and I thought, why are they doing this? They bought lunch every Monday and Wednesday. Every Monday and Wednesday. It was a team camaraderie, but it was delivered. Now, it was like, I think it was either pizza Monday and taco Wednesday, right? So we had all Mexican food on Wednesday, pizza. So nothing that was very expensive. But they said the payoff was huge, right? They had people started to sit together, talk together, socialize, right? So it was very team building. And I will admit, I even worked there, and I think my pay was like, I don't know, maybe 40,000 at the time. But I was happy to work there. Why? The culture was great. People were treated well. They fed us. But they ordered enough food that Mondays leftovers were Tuesday's lunch, and Wednesdays was Thursday's lunch, right? So there was always something you could pick out in the fridge. They always had drinks in there. Again, I was talking with somebody in HR, and I said, why do you guys do this? And they said, because that little bit of money allows us not to have to really go and, increase pay to keep people here, right? Because it's either money or happiness. Right. And money's only going to do so much to where they finally say, I'm just not happy. So you have to figure out how to make your team happy. And sometimes you'll find it's a benefit to your company, right? Both financially and personally. You're not having to look for more people, right? And it attracts other people. So more people are going to want to work for a company who makes them happy.
Yeah, that's and then nailed it right there. Leveraging the things, like going back to leveraging the cure for that root cause and not necessarily the symptom. I think, people think money is what makes them ultimately happy. And a certain level of money sure definitely plays a role in it. You want to be able to live comfortably and not have to stress over finances. But beyond that, I think they said, this was published a few years ago, so maybe it's probably gone up by now, but I think the average person needs a household income of like $75,000 a year to be quote unquote happy. And then everything beyond that is diminishing returns. So if you're making, $500,000 a year, but you have a very poor quality of life because you're working 24/7 and you hate what you do and, whatever, then you'd almost, like in a lot of situations, people would go back to that, 75,000 to have time and flexibility and the ability to spend more time watching their kids' sports games and their families. I just talked to a mover the other day. He said that he's one of we actually just promoted, he's not a mover anymore. We just promoted him into a dispatcher role, but he was one of our better crew chiefs. And he said that, I used to do on the road trucking and I'd go leave my family for days, weeks at a time. And he's like, the money was great. I'd make like $2,000 or $3,000 a week some weeks doing that. But he's like, I missed my son's first baseball game. And that's when I knew I needed to hang it up. Yeah. And he took a pay cut to come and have more predictability to his schedule and have, a better work-life balance. And so, it's really easy to throw money at problems and hope that they get fixed, but it's not a very good business strategy when you're trying to control your margins, especially in a slim margin business. Like moving is relatively slim margins. And if, you're just giving guys raises to try to keep them or, pay, it's important to pay them well, but just constantly using that and not doing the other things like taking their families into consideration. That's another thing that I found is a really good thing for culture. Like the pizza parties and stuff are great, but it also doesn't really affect their wife or their partner or their kids, that they don't have dad or mom home all the time to come watch their baseball game. So what can we do to keep not only the team member happy, but their families happy, who's ultimately allowing them to do this position and hopefully supporting them in this position and not resentful that they work at a company. So that's one thing that we like to take into consideration when it comes to like rewarding good behavior, bonuses or stuff like that. Like, we could just, give them a paycheck for $500, $1,000, bonus, or we could give them 4 or 5 tickets to a Lightning game that they can bring their family to. And now their family's like, wow, this company gave us Lightning tickets, or this company gave us this experience to go to the zoo or whatever it is. Doesn't cost nearly as much as what that bonus might be, but it has a much greater impact because now they come home to the support of the entire, thing, the entire reason that they do what they do. So I love that.
We're a 7-day-a-week business, right? 24 hours, essentially, even though a a lot of realtors don't feel it's that way, right? I feel differently. I feel like, work-life balance is overrated. And I'm sure my team hates when I say that, but it's about priorities, not work-life balance. And, it has a lot to do with priorities, and you can have both the balance, but still be working. Like, for instance, I do a lot of dinners. I'll take clients out to dinners, or I'll meet people out. And that to me is still working, but I'll bring my husband, or we'll make it an event, and it'll always be a nice time. So I say, is it really work? On the one hand, it is. It's still, still getting out there, still being visible, trying not to kind of stay behind. But it helps to, again, I think everything's about connection. That's what I talked about at the Mahaffey Theater, that we really need to make connections, make strong ones, let people know you're there. And with the team, because we don't have this balance, right? You work so much. The best thing about a team is when they can feel that they can trust their other team members to support them as well. So if one person needs to go somewhere, they've got, a couple of other people who can volunteer to support them, and vice versa. So I ended up with a really amazing team who all, they're out there helping each other to kind of move the pendulum forward and get everything done with a white glove service that we offer.
Yeah. And sometimes you go through seasons where it's okay to be off balance a little bit. Like leading up to that event, like I was waking up at 4 and working until 8 and basically 7 days a week, a lot of weeks, because it was like a sprint, it was a season of growth. And I learned a lot, not only about just, business in general, made a lot of amazing connections with vendors and people like yourself, but also about myself. And, what would happen if I periodically go through these seasons and apply it to anything in my life, and how much growth and improvement could I get? And there's a book called Off Balance on Purpose, and it talks about that. And if you think about the title of it, it's like off balance, but you're on your purpose, and you're intentionally doing things that align with your purpose and your vision and your values, and to go through those seasons. But again, it's important to have the support of your family when you're doing those things, because I think a lot of relationships end, and, children get raised without a lot of parental mentorship and guidance, because they're just focused on the off balance part, but it's not really on purpose. And so I think aligning the two, figuring out what is my purpose, how do I get that purpose accomplished? And if that means I got to work long days for extended periods of time and go through these sprints and go through these seasons, then, it's important to communicate that down the line to everybody else who it's going to affect, because it may not just affect you. It might affect multiple people in your family or your friends and relationships and your partners and everybody else. So,
well, for us, Wade, we have a different, if somebody really wants a good work-life balance, and I was just talking about this with a realtor yesterday, if you want a good work-life balance and you have a license, right? You can refer. So imagine now, if you just decided to sit at home, make phone calls and refer. I've got this great referral partner. He goes out there, he'll make the calls, and he doesn't want to have to work these bigger deals. So I do all of his luxury deals. So I give him the 25% referral fee, and I work the entire deal. So from the moment of going in for the listing appointment all the way through to the closing, right? So he's generating money without having to do more work than just get me the appointment, right? So you can consider different avenues. It's not always like I'm a realtor and I have to do the grind and work the 7 days and answer the phone at night and worry about inspections, because there's a lot to worry about, right? A realtor who's not concerned. I just had a not great closing the other day, because I wouldn't have accepted a home like this to turn over. And it was the seller's representative should have known better and gone in and done the work to make sure that every item on the checklist of improvements that we needed from the repair request needed to be done. Well, they weren't done. So it made for a very bad closing. And I called him up, and he's more, he's been in the business for 26 years, which is a year longer than I have. So he should know better. Right. But the challenge was he didn't care. And there's a great quote that I had used in the thing, and it's, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. So you really have to put the care into it, because the worst thing you could do is have a smooth transaction all the way through and drop the ball at the last minute. right? Same thing with moving. You know, just because you met with them, everything seems great. You show up on moving day and, you know, you crap the bed. That's not a good move, or you break an item or something. So everything has to be really thoroughly thought through, the entire process, and it has to be closed out with intention, right? So with the intention of making sure that things are completed. You know, every little step is taken to make sure that it's going to end smoothly. Because then, you know, if you can show up at a closing table and everyone's happy, you hand over, you know, a wonderful bottle of champagne or something nice and say, you know, I'm so happy for you. I always let them know I'm still here. You might have closed, but I'm always here for you. And another big mistake I think people make, and it's unintentional, is they want to use that as a marketing tool to get more business, right? They're closing. They're going to put photos of their clients online. And then in their card, they're going to say, thank you so much. Do you have a friend or family member you can refer to me? Right? Sometimes I think just leave it as a thank you, right? I'm so happy that I can work with you, because if they're happy, they'll refer. If they're happy, they're going to talk about their experience, right? So remember, it's not always about asking about what somebody can give you, but what are you providing them?
Most of you have heard me talk about Moversville and the power of their email marketing service that has helped us increase leads by over 112% over the last year. But have you heard of Moversville Connect? Moversville Connect is an incredible resource for all things moving. They feature an array of vendors and services and lists like insurance providers, softwares, equipment suppliers, marketing sources, and much, much more. The best part? This resource is free. Go check out Moversville Connect today by going to moversville.com and clicking Connect. That's moversville.com and click Connect and discover the world of Moversville beyond email. I love that. I love that. And, you know, it goes back to basically the best marketing strategy really just is to provide that raving fan 5-star experience throughout the entire process and then after the process. I think a lot of people, you know, they look at it transactionally and they're like, oh, well, you know, move's done or closing's done, you know, time to move on to the next one. And then they keep trying to market. They don't stay in touch with those people. And, you know, probably as well as I do, the average person moves every 3 to 7 years, depending on their situations. And so if you're going to be in the business for the long haul, it's important to maintain those relationships. And when I first bought and sold my first home in Gainesville, I had a really good experience with an agent that stayed in touch. You know, after the closing, she took me out to dinner at her country club and then, you know, would randomly check in and, you know, comment on my social media stuff. And just when it came time to buy another house up in Gainesville, she was the first person that I thought of because she actually treated it like a relationship. And there's no reason in moving that movers can't be doing that, especially when you've had the interaction with the customer. Your team can't be doing it if they're the ones who had the interaction with the customer. And just, you know, catch up with them, you know, maybe make it more than just that transaction and show that you really valued their business and them as a person. And maybe you become friends even after the fact. And we've had a lot of those situations too.
Yeah. But I think it's harder when you think in terms of 3 to 7 years, right? You make that dot and you say, we're working from here and we're going to wait another 3 to 7 years. What the deeper understanding is think of it more like a spider web as opposed to going from point to point, right? The spider web is this one person knows 100 people, right? 100 people that they can recommend. So my goal is never just this one person. I treat them so well that the 100 people in their sphere know about me.
And they want to brag about you.
Brag about me.
I have the best person. Use my person for X, Y, and Z, whether it's real estate or moving or whatever other service that people might provide. I like that because people are excited. You know, they're excited to talk about discovering something great, especially in a business where there's a lot of mediocrity or even a stigma like moving where there's a lot of bad experiences like you just described earlier from your one client, because people love to talk about the bad experiences too. The danger, I think, lies in the mediocrity where it's just a transaction. It was fine. You know, we got done. I'm not excited to tell anybody about it. I also don't have anything bad to say. And it just kind of
fizzles out and doesn't lead to anything. At least if it's a bad experience, you can take that as feedback to improve so it never happens again. But if you're just providing a mediocre experience, you're going to have to spend a lot more money in marketing to get those one-off clients that aren't referring you as much as they should, when all you have to do, to your point earlier, is get to that 1 degree higher and reach that boiling point, do a little bit extra, and it can totally explode.
Right. Well, my very first job was the Gap, right? That's my real job. I was a babysitter,
Your real job.
I think I worked mowing lawns for my dad. But when you talk about a real job, the Gap taught me so much. And early in my career in sales, I would tell people, send your kids to the Gap, right? Everybody has to work at the Gap, because the Gap had this great model of the customer is always right. Right? You never want to believe that, but it changes your attitude when you can apologize, let them feel better. I'm so sorry that this happened, right? Sometimes that'll diffuse it immediately. Fold your clothes, right? So that teaches about kind of your presence, right? The Gap could have been messy. There are a bunch of t-shirts out there, right? But they're always neat. They want you to use the board. They want you to do it right. I can still fold just like they can at the Gap. Without a board. But the thing is, it teaches you so much about getting to know the customer that's so important. I have experiences where I bring people in and I hire them just to work an open house. So open a door, so that we have more than one person present, right? I think that that's important to make sure that the whole experience is good. And I got somebody who opened the door, didn't have a great attitude, right? And then all she cared about was texting me about, where's my money? But I have Zelle and she had another thing. I couldn't do that. So I tried to get somebody else to send the money, but she got pissed off. The whole thing was the attitude was so bad. I'm probably not going to bring this person back. Because, you need to have people that show up, have a great time, enjoy the job. And you've already agreed to make that money, right? You've already agreed that you're going to accept this and this is something you're going to do. Make it a great experience. Right.
Yeah, I love that. That's, work for the job that you want, not necessarily the job that you have. And I think that goes all the way up to the top. Work for the luxury high-end customer that you want. If you don't have them right now, with the, lower end customer, and maybe they know somebody who, could be your high end job, or maybe they'll, they're earlier in their career and they'll become a high end customer at some point later on. That's really, really good stuff there. What about like any failures that you may have had, or like in real estate specifically? Like, has there ever been an instance maybe early in your career where you messed up, and, what did you do to overcome that, to keep your momentum going? And if you never had a failure, that's cool too.
I don't have a failure. No, I'm sure there's been, but I think in my headspace right now, while we're talking, I never think of anything as a failure. It's a learning opportunity. It's a growing opportunity. I remember early in my career, somebody got upset with something I had done early in my career. And it was while I was working at Signature Place. We're talking a long time ago. And it was, I think the overall, they weren't getting a good experience of what they were purchasing. I know the market was turning at that time, but, I'm a believer in eat the frog. Have you heard that term before? Like if something is bad, it's like having a plate with a frog on it. You can be stressed out all day knowing that you have to eat the frog, or you eat it immediately. So I knew this couple was unhappy. And I remember getting in my car. They lived in Tampa. So, which isn't far. If anyone's listening who doesn't know Tampa Bay, it's just over a bridge, but we all think of it like a different country. So I drove over 20, 25 minutes, and I apologized. I said, I'm sorry this didn't go well. And I made up for it, right? I did everything I could. I said, I'm here for you. Let me do what I can. Not only did I win them over, they bought 2 condos, right?
Wow.
One ended up being an investment and one that they moved in on. But it was really, again, I remember there was, something in the process that they didn't like. But I truly believe that people are willing to forgive if you take the steps to make up for it. So I immediately try to resolve problems as quickly as they happen. So again, it's a learning experience. It's not a failure when you can move past it. It's only a failure when you quit.
Yeah, I love that. And a lot of times it's not what happened, it's what you did about it that the customer will remember. And sometimes that customer who might have been very upset in the beginning turns out to be one of your most loyal customers and buys 2 condos or books the moves with you and refers you for the rest of their life because how you handled it. And recently, I can speak to an experience actually that might resonate with you. I had ordered a custom suit for the event. I spent a bunch of money, put it on my Amex, a few weeks before the event. I said, is this going to be here in time? He's like, oh, yeah, sure. It was from a local suit shop downtown St. Pete. And so I check in with him a few days before the event, say, hey, we still on track? Haven't heard anything. Yeah, we're still good. Wednesday, the event was on Thursday. Wednesday around noon, I'm like, hey, what time can I pick up that suit? He calls me like an hour later. The tariffs held up the suit. It's in Vietnam or somewhere, coming wherever it was coming from, at least like the original threading of it. And it's not going to be here till Friday. And I'd spent a decent chunk of change on this suit. And I'm like, are you serious right now? And he's like, I want to make it right. I'm going to do everything I possibly can. And so he tried to put me into a suit last minute, didn't quite, fit right. So I just ended up going with a different option for the event, thought it worked out. But afterwards I was like so mad about this because like I had the coloring and everything about it, like designed specifically for this one event. Couldn't think of any other time I was going to wear it. It was like a purple suit, basically, like a dark purple, like, velvety color. And I'm like, when am I ever going to wear a purple velvet suit again? And so I was really frustrated about it, but I let the dust settle. I didn't get reactive. I'm like, I put this on Amex. I could easily do a chargeback because I had asked for a refund. He's like, we don't do refunds, but we're going to give you a free custom suit to make up for it and this original suit. And I was like, okay, all right, I'll hold off on the chargeback and let's see how this shapes out. And so I went in there. He gave me an extra free shirt, and he's going to basically build out a whole tailored custom second suit for free. And I'm like, okay, like I would do business with this person again. They made it right. Like I was very frustrated. I spent a bunch of time the night before trying to figure out what to wear the next day because my plan didn't work out. But they're making it right. And ultimately, that's what I'm going to remember about this place is that they went above and beyond to basically, rectify the situation. I think when it comes to moving, sometimes people have bad days. Sometimes, things aren't going to go your way. Maybe there's some unexpected thing. Maybe that mover that you were talking about earlier in the episode had a bad day and somebody dropped the ball. I'd be curious to know, what are they doing to make it right at the end of it? Are they going to comp it? Are they going to, I don't know. I mean, some situations there's not a lot you can do, but
this way, Wade, we're in today's day and time, somebody could immediately go online and complain. You could have immediately gone online and said, worst experience, but he came back, he made amends. And so now you have a good experience. I always tell people not to react, to see how you can do it, because you can ruin your career by that Google review, right? Favorite quote, I love quotes, is be the person that if someone said something bad about you, nobody would believe it, right? So your reputation has to be out there speaking about you because that's who you are. You want people to know that's who you are, right? So your integrity is everything, right? You want to stick by your word, do the right thing. So I believe in all that.
I absolutely love that quote. I just wrote that down. I want to put it on a sign and frame it somewhere in my office. But that's absolutely right. And I'm a big believer, I like to do business with people the same way I want people to do business with me. So if I mess up and if I screw something up, I don't like it when somebody goes on and like tries to, write a bad review or ask for a refund, all this stuff, do a chargeback. Like I wouldn't like that as the business owner. So I always try to put myself in those shoes when I come across a vendor, somebody who messed something up. And I'm a big believer in never putting anger in writing. Have that conversation. Like I could have easily texted him all these mean things and gone on his website and done all this stuff. But I stayed quiet for a few days, kind of let the dust settle a little bit. And then I just walked in and had a conversation directly with him and gave him the opportunity to make it right. And he did. And the thing is, in today's day and age, when you put anger in writing, it can be misconstrued because the tonality and everything can go a long way. But B, it's so easy to share that now. Like you could screenshot something and then all of a sudden they post it on their story, or it lives on Google forever and people can click on your Google profile and see all the reviews you left. I saw one person only writes 1-star reviews for places like Chili's and Hooters and Home Depot. And I'm like, this person just isn't like a good person. And I don't ever want to be that person who people they look negatively on. It's like talking gossip or badly about somebody else. That really only makes the person who's saying the bad things about somebody else look bad. And especially when you can share all that content. So I always like to, if I don't have anything nice to say, I probably won't say anything at all, or I'm going to go talk to them in person and have that conversation and deal directly with that person rather than all these other people about this person's problem, because I know that's just going to make me look bad. And I always like to say to put good things in writing, because I've seen a lot of examples where I've been really thrilled with working with somebody and I've sent them an email or left them a review, and then they share that review and then they share who's leaving that review, and it makes me look good because I'm like, saying all these positive things. And I think that's something that's missing to an extent in our culture is people they're quick to want to just be negative about things, and they don't as often do the positive stuff. And I just like being, surrounding myself with positivity and minimizing the drama as much as possible. And ultimately that, again, attracts people that also share that value. So yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's a good spot to end on. So this podcast basically reaches an international audience, and I'm sure, do a lot of business with people internationally with the high-end homes in beautiful St. Petersburg that you list at. So if anybody wants to get in contact with you, I've actually met a couple movers that are pretty successful that want to move to St. Petersburg. How could people get in touch with you if they want to either just, talk business, or if they are thinking about moving to the area and want to buy or sell, a piece of property here?
Yep. They can call me directly on my cell phone at 727-729-2699. They can email me at jenniferthayer@kw.com. That's for Keller Williams. Or they can go find me on my website at jenniferthayergroup.com.
Awesome. Jennifer, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. You dropped some amazing nuggets here. I got a couple pages worth of notes here. So love that last quote. Be the person that if somebody said something bad about you, nobody would believe them.
Yep.
I'll leave it with that. So thank you for tuning in to the Grow Your Moving Company podcast with Jennifer Thayer, the #1 realtor in St. Petersburg with Keller Williams St. Pete, the queen of downtown St. Pete. Definitely reach out to her, and we will put that information in the show notes. And until next time, I will see you all later.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Before we wrap up, I want to thank the team at Hey Lou for making this show happen. Hey Lou is a virtual assistant placement and management platform owned by a fellow moving titan, and they provide the production for the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. But here's what's really amazing. Their virtual assistants do way more than just podcast support. From managing my crazy schedule to handling client communications, data and KPI analysis, and even sales support for a fraction of the cost of traditional salaried in-house employees, they're truly a secret weapon behind Two College Brothers' growth. Curious how a VA could transform your business? Check out our referral link in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. If you'd like to learn more about any of the sponsors listed on this show, want to apply for the next Moving Titan retreat, or interested in owning or working for a Two College Brothers franchise, drop me a line at wade@twocollegebrothers.com. Moving out. Have a great day.